Hey everybody, thanks for spending a Saturday morning with us. I am Frederick Philip Von Weiss, and thank you for consuming the Thunder Nerds, a conversation with the people behind the technology that love what they do and do tech good. And subscribe to the show. Give us a like. Give us a click on the notification bell. That'd be super cool, neato of you. We'd really appreciate it. So with that being said, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and get to our guest. We have a super special guest today. I'm really excited to have her. We have software engineer, founder, writer, mentor, conference speaker, Arit Amana. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Frederick. That was great. I think you covered it all. Thank you for having me.
I try, it's a lot to say right at the beginning. But anyway, thank you so much for spending a Saturday with us. I know, a Saturday morning is not the easiest thing to negotiate with family and everything going on. Everybody's like, yeah, it's Saturday. And then, oh, wait, I got to do this thing. So thank you so much. How's your Saturday morning going, by the way?
It's going really good. The weather is beautiful. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. Absolutely. Hey, let me ask you something topical. We got this really great alert notification, if you will, from the Joe Bidens this week. I'm so excited. No masks for vaccinated people. What do you think? And do you have your vaccine? Are you willing to go out in public without the mask? Do you feel safe?
That's a good question. So I am fully vaccinated. So I've gotten the 2 shots. But on the other hand, I mean, it's weird, right? Like, I think for me, I've kind of grown accustomed to the mask wearing, to be honest. And I think where I'm coming from will be just out of an abundance of caution. I think I'm still going to wear my mask, not so much necessarily for me, but just to still send that message that I care about my community. I care about maybe people who haven't been vaccinated and are still at risk.
Right.
I'm comfortable with that. I don't necessarily feel like I need to stop wearing my mask as some kind of indication that, it's over or we're getting through it. I mean, at the end of the day, we have different types of people with different susceptibility, and I don't know. It's not a big deal for me. So I'm fully vaccinated, but I will keep wearing my mask probably for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I might do the same thing. I'm slightly cautious. I got a little bit of trepidation. I also have I'm fully vaccinated. I just, I see the science out there, but I don't know, if I go out, is there any way for me to bring it home for my son? My son's only 6, he's not in that 12 and up. So space to get the Pfizer. So I'm just a little scared, but I want to see what happens in a month, 2 months from now. And at that point, that's when I'm going to go, okay, yeah, I'll take the mask off.
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, let's just give it a little longer runway. I think for me, good with let's see what it looks like in the fall, right? Like, I think for me, that's kind of like my mindset. Like, let the fall come around and let's kind of see where we're at. But I'm in no rush necessarily to quote unquote like go maskless.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm just I'm just still a little scared, and we'll see what happens then. And at that point, I'll be very excited. I'm optimistic by the end of the year we'll see Times Square filled up again, and everybody's going to be good. But
that will be nice.
Everything crossed.
We'll get there. I think we will. Safely. We'll get there safely.
Exactly. So, hey, let's talk about first. Well, we'll do a little bit of communicating the present and go backwards a little bit. Let's talk about what you do. You are currently a software engineer for Forem. I imagine I'm saying that right? So Forem, I assume the technology is exactly what I think it is. Do you mind communicating, 1, what exactly Forem is, and then 2, what you do at Forem?
Yes. So Forem is an open source company. And what that means is our code is completely 100% open source. And so there's no like opacity when it comes to what we're building and how we're building it. And we have just a very vibrant, supportive open source community around what we do. And as far as our product, we are building software to empower online communities that value data privacy, and basically just empowering creators online to connect with people and to lead respectful communities that value data privacy. So that's what we do in a nutshell. And so as an engineer at Forem, my day-to-day consists mostly, so one of the tools in our software are our moderation tools, our administration and moderation tools. And so that's typically where I do most of my work. And so right now we're building out a more UX-centered admin experience in the back end, and also beefing up our moderation tools, and that empowers the administrators of these communities to keep their communities safe and supportive. Yeah, so that's day to day what I do.
But now, when you say communities, is the audience pretty much anybody? Like hypothetically, I could pull up a scenario, but I don't know if that's going to work. But I own a pizza shop, and I want to open up a community to have, hey, on Friday nights we have pizza bingo. That's a great example, but let's roll with it. Pizza bingo. The little bingo pieces are pepperoni. I want to start a forum. I want to get people involved. I want to have a community. Is this for me, or is this for small? Is it for small business? Is what I'm getting at. Medium, not enterprise.
Excellent question. Please. So we actually are going to have two offerings. So we have the self-hosted option, and that's for literally anyone. Now we're rolling that out slowly. So I could maybe say we're like in a pre-beta phase right now, but the end goal is to have anyone literally able to spin up a forum for their community needs and self-host it. And so that's one option. And then we have the more enterprise offering. And so that's where we're going to offer more enterprise level solutions for that level of company or that level of business. Yeah. But we are really excited about literally getting this into the hands of anyone that wants to have a forum for their community or their needs, and have it be self-hosted. And we are going to make it very modular. And so you can have the bare bones forum, or you can have these modules. You can have a chat component. You can have maybe a listings component. And we're modularizing a lot of the functionality. And so you can build your custom forum, basically.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. All right. Well, yeah, we'll put some links in the show notes for everybody to check it out. It sounds like an amazing tool. I'm very interested. And by the way, if you're watching, go ahead and live chat with us. We'll put your questions up and we'll answer them right on the show. So let's talk about your career journey. So, you didn't start off as a software engineer. You started off in a little bit different path, but it seems that it does make sense along the way. Just like all of us, a lot of us are second career devs. For me, I went to school for graphic design and photography, and I was making flyers for my band, et cetera, and it just kind of blossomed, and it went kind of down that path. I know for you at a young age, you were introduced to technology. Your father was an engineer, am I right? So you always had technology in the house?
Exactly. Yes. My father, he was a sales engineer. And so he always had access to the latest tech, right? Like part of his job was outfitting companies, banks and, the like with technology, computers, printing, like literally the whole nine. And so he kind of always, we had, I'm dating myself here, but we had the desktop computers and the video game consoles and the printers, and we were always surrounded with technology. And so at a very early age, I gained an appreciation for the power of technology, to make life easier or to make life better. Yeah. So I've always been surrounded by technology, but as a young girl, I wanted to be a doctor. And so that was, that was my the MD for all my teddy bears and my dolls and things like that. Yeah. So
Nice.
I was
And you went to
very
Duke,
firmly
right?
on the science track. And I did, yes. Duke is my
Yeah.
alma mater. Yeah, my bachelor's. Yeah.
And so you were going there for biology, is that right?
Yes. So I was a
Okay.
pre-med major, right? And so for the most part, most of my life science came easy to me. I talk about this a lot. Like my schoolwork came easy to me for the most part until I got to college, and more specifically my third year. I had delayed declaring a major. And so by the time I was in my junior year, I had all these prereqs for pre-med that I had to complete. And so I'm taking like all the orgo and the microbiology and the physical chemistry, like everything just in one semester. And so, of course, I couldn't excel in all of them. And instead of me, and I say this because a lot of times we think that things maybe are always inevitable, but I'm very clear to say that even though my path ended up the way it was, I see where I made mistakes. And so that was one of my earliest mistakes career-wise, was assuming that just because I had a hard semester, medicine wasn't for me. And that was a wrong conclusion. And I'm very clear about that. Yeah. And so that was how I chose to interpret that really difficult year, really, my junior year. And so I took it to mean, oh, I don't have what it takes to become a doctor, which wasn't true. I mean, I could have just repeated a semester or, graduated in 5 years as opposed to 4. But that was the conclusion that I made. And so for me, that was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. So that's when I pivoted into public health, because I figured, well, it's still health, not as intense as medicine. I don't get to feel like I've wasted all my education. So that's what made me pivot into public health. Yeah.
That's interesting. I think there's a really good lesson that I'd like to highlight there that we could talk to people that you brought up, which is, don't, just because things are hard doesn't mean that you should give up on them. You could still make it through. I mean, a lot of the things, what is it? The old adage or whatever is anything that's worth it is going to be difficult.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm not articulating that correctly, but you get the vibe. It's you got to put in the hard work, and you'll get really, the more hard work you put in, the greater the reward, right?
Yes.
So you could have finished that in degree in 3 years. You could have had a giant turnaround. So
right.
But
I think it was. Go ahead.
No, please.
It was my youth, I was naive, and I was arrogant as well. Like there's an arrogance that you have when you're younger that I think you begin to shed when you get older. No, it's the reality. I think I was arrogant. I felt like I had this all or nothing mentality, and so I think it was a casualty of being as young as I was. And I recognize that now when I say it now, just to help others out there. You're exactly right. Just because something is difficult doesn't mean it's not for you, or you still can't, put in the effort and get there. Yeah.
It's amazing how we trust 18-year-olds with the career path of somebody that is, in their 60s, 70s. You know what I mean? Like it was us at 18 that made a lot of these life decisions that kind of forked in all these different directions. And it's that's why it's so important that as a young person to get mentors or to be part of some kind of mentorship relationship that you're getting that input, or a mastermind, some type of community, so you could have a soundboard to bounce things.
Yes, absolutely. You're exactly right. Yeah.
So then you went and you were a health analyst. Am I saying that right?
Yes. So I got my master's in public health, and I worked as a public health analyst. And typically what I did for that job was just generate evidence-based reports. We were a contract company, and we had contracts with different government and nonprofit agencies. And so if they wanted, say, to maybe, for example, let me just give an example, the Department of Transportation, they wanted to make some policy changes around truckers with diabetes, just as an example. And so we would scour the literature, the scientific literature, and come up with the evidence either to support that proposed policy change or refute it. So in general, that's what my job was. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you're still doing like like you said, you're still in the health industry. You're
Right,
using the education that you obtained, and you're
right.
going down that path. And then there was I don't know if there was a pivot, but maybe there was a corner, right? Something to do with the company where there
Yes,
were they let you
right.
go, and then you started doing WordPress sites for friends and small businesses.
Exactly. So around that time, yeah. So the company let me go, and I had just had my son. My son was 1 plus, and I had gotten into WordPress back in college, but it was really just a hobby. It was just to have blogs, and the clubs that I belonged to at college. I would create just simple either blogs for them or like just single one, just to have a presence on the web, and that was something that I still did on the side, as I was a public health analyst. And so when I lost that job, I was getting to the point where people started to know what I was doing. And then they would ask me, oh, can you do this simple site? Like I had a friend who was a photographer, and he was like, oh, it would be nice to feature my work online. Can you help me with that? And I had other friends who started asking me to build online presence for them. And at first it was like, oh, you can pay me whatever you want, or it was very informal. But then I started realizing that I could actually do this and make a pretty coin. And it dovetailed quite nicely with also my desire to be home with my son. Right. So that was a hard part for me. Like during the first year of his life, balancing a full-time job and being a new mother, I really felt like I wanted to be there more consistently for my son. And so doing the WordPress thing, I could do that from home. And so that was my first taste of work from home, right? In a sense, right? And so
Yeah.
everything kind of worked out, right? And then my partner at the time, he was taking care of quote unquote the big bills, right? And so, but then I was generating some income from my WordPress hustle, and then I was there for my son. So it was a win-win.
Yeah. It's super important too to have that time at home with your kids when they're
Right.
that young. I mean,
Young.
I know a lot of people do the daycare because they have to, and we certainly did some of that a little bit as well. And if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. There's all kinds of financial things and that we could do or not do, right? So, but yeah, if you can and you have that opportunity, that's amazing. It's great for the kids' child development. But so from that point, you started coming into roadblocks.
Yeah.
To say that, and which most of us do when we start learning about this technology. We're
Yes.
building these WordPress websites, and then we go, how do I change this? How do I change
Yes.
that? The client's coming to me. I might not know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, like the three basics, right? And then on top of that, you have all these theming things where you started using a server language, PHP. So
Right.
you're having to make change, and a lot of people at that point stop. They go, you know what? This is too much for me. I can't make it. I'm going to do something else, or they just continue to do what they were originally doing. But you took the initiative and you went forward. So what did that look like for you, and how did you actually find the time to implement what you were learning and moved ahead?
Yeah. So for me, the passion to keep going or to move ahead, as you said, came from I loved empowering the businesses, whether it was a solo entrepreneur or like a small business or like a small law firm, like whatever it was. The payoff for me was empowering their business processes. So I remember one of my earliest clients, she was a massage therapist, and she had a mobile massage therapy business. And she was doing the paper and pen thing. Literally, like she had a date book, and it was paper and pen, and everything was quite, I guess you could say, analog. Um, and so just because of the lack of a system and no leveraging of technology, she had a lot of potential clients falling through the cracks. And so she had the interest, but she couldn't translate them to clientele. And so she was leaving a lot of money on the table. And so I was able to set up one with a website, a booking form, a payment processing solution. I took her contract online. And so she wasn't chasing people with printed out copies and getting them to sign it. And literally, she'll tell you this, within a couple of weeks, her clientele tripled. And she didn't feel the strain of it. It was just she wasn't, they weren't falling through the cracks. And so that's just an example of how I was empowering people and empowering businesses. And so that was it for me. I didn't want to give that up. And so for me, it wasn't an option of, oh, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing or I'm going to stop this. It was, I see the value of what I'm doing. I mean, the money is good, but I see the value of what I'm doing. And so how can I get better at what I do? And so, like you said, I got to the point where, plugins were beginning to be, like duplicate, like this plugin does A, B, C, but what I need is AC. Like it got to the point where the sites were getting bloated, right? And I couldn't find those perfect combos of plugins and themes to do what my clients needed. And that's when I felt like if I knew how to code, I could probably either build this or I could tweak it in the plugin and get the plugin. Like I could do something. So that was where I decided, okay, it's probably time to get into the code and kind of see how this works under the hood. Yeah.
Now you use one of these code camps, right? One of these boot camps to get you to help get your career going. And one of the videos I watched, it sounded like that you were you were taking care of your baby, and you were working though. Like you would go from like 7 to 11 at night. That was your time to start learning. Yeah, can you just tell us a little bit about that journey and what that was like? Because I mean, for me, I understand. I'm a father. I have a child. I know it's hard to find the time just to do anything. But like at that young of age with a baby and trying to learn, so yeah, love to hear some of your insights on that.
Absolutely. So the process that I took, I used free resources online, which were great. But I think at this time I had my daughter. So my son's older now and I have my infant daughter. And I think any mother will tell you, any new mother, just the frazzled, your mental state is frazzled, you're sleep deprived. And so even though the free resources were great, I didn't feel like I was making progress. I felt like I needed more structure and I needed like a community. I needed people to kind of check on me and like people to check in with and kind of get the sense that I'm making progress and I'm working towards something. And so that's when I looked into boot camps. And so I took a couple of free mini boot camps from different companies before deciding on the boot camp that I chose. And so the boot camp that I chose, the Firehose Project, they've since been acquired. But what I liked about the Firehose Project was, first of all, they were one of the cheapest that I found at $6,000. And so they didn't have this ISA thing, which is like all the rage now. You either paid upfront or you got a traditional loan. And so what I did was I got a traditional loan, right? And then another thing I liked about them was all the content was already loaded into the website and it was like a drip format, right? And so you complete a module and module 2 opens up and you complete that and the next module. And that was important to me because I turned down the boot camps that were like cohort based and like you were learning with and you were going along with someone, because I was afraid that what if I fall behind? What if, my baby's teething and I'm not sleeping, And so I wanted a 100% self-paced solution that I could control. So I can go fast if I can, and I can slow down if I need to. So that was another reason. And so the whole 7 to 10 thing. So my daughter, my son was a really good napper. He would nap for like 3 hours straight, but my daughter was more active. And so she was pretty active during the day. And I could never find like a real pocket of time to either like take my lessons or code or work on my assignments. And so what I did was I said, okay, she's not going to go down during the day. I'm going to sleep train her so I know she sleeps well during the night. And so her bedtime was 6:30. And I sleep trained her so she would sleep from 6:30 to about 11. And so then my son was older, and so my partner could handle my son. And so what I did was I then designated 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. every single day for deep focus work because I knew she'd be sleeping. She's not going to stir. My son was with his dad. And so I felt better during the day, not really doing anything and just being there with my daughter, because I knew come evening, I would have this uninterrupted time to really go hard and, deep focus work. Yeah. So that was my schedule 24/7, like 7 days a week, basically.
Yeah, it's really difficult for people to find the time. And like you said, you did the sleep training, you had a set time, and then and life happens too. I'm sure there were multiple times where she woke up early or didn't go to sleep at the right time, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And you just kind of have to roll with it. And a lot of these life happens, right? And a lot of these boot camps, they're very much you have to be there. Yeah. It's an 80-hour thing day, or a week. It's crazy. I mean, but you do come out on the other side, et cetera, with all this opportunity. But on the same token, that's not for everybody, and not everybody could listen to somebody constantly teaching or visually taking in, and they need to sit down and read it. I know for my wife, she needs to sit down and read stuff. She can't be, she doesn't learn from a teacher. She learns by going through the book and reading the book. So everybody's different in that way, right?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, I think the more diversity we see, even in bootcamp, tech bootcamp education, the better it will be for everyone. You're exactly right. Like, that option was just not available to me. Like, I just, really, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., throughout the day. Like, it just wasn't an option for me. And I'm really grateful that I had the bootcamp that I found. I don't think I would be where I am if I didn't have that option of a totally self-paced option for myself, and just going at my pace, unlocking the lessons as I went along. We also had, we were also assigned a mentor that we met with for an hour a week. And that was extremely instrumental. I'm still in touch with Jeremy today. Shout out Jeremy. But
hey, Jeremy.
He was instrumental in really helping me believe that I could be an engineer. Yeah, I always credit him with that. Yeah.
I love that. So what was your experience after you completed this course? From my understanding, it took you about 6 months on the market trying to find a position. What exactly was that like, and how did you land your first tech job?
It was, I always call it the most demoralizing part of my journey, because it really was that. My boot camp, they had like a career prep course, and not to take anything away, but I don't think I was really prepped, even though I took the course. But I don't think, because no one can really prepare you, I think, for the reality of looking for your first tech job, especially as a second career person in tech. It was tough. I didn't, now I'm really into networking. And if I could do anything different, I would have started networking at the same time I started bootcamp. But I never really networked at any point even in my previous careers. And so when I started, no, I never did. I never, you're in college and everyone's there with you, and then you get your first job, and then you have your course. I never networked. I never realized the value of networking until I got into tech. And even to find my first tech job, I had no network. I was just hitting up the job boards, like Indeed.com, Monster. I just kept hitting up the job boards, right? And LinkedIn as well, right? And so, it was a lot. I applied to almost 100 jobs. And out of all those jobs, I got 3 on-sites, and then one of them rejected me. And then 5 months later, they had another role open up, and they remembered me. And so they got in touch. That's how I got my first tech job. Yes, my first tech job was with the company that rejected me the first time around. But I got to the final round. It was between me and one other person. And so they gave it to the other person. So I was rejected. Yeah. But 5 months later, they had a similar role open up. And I think they remembered me from the last interview. And so they came back knocking, and I was still on the job market. And so that's when I got the job. But yeah.
Nice. And I know one of the things that you cited was, the worry of ageism. I mean, I believe we're the same age. And, when I was going through my career, I also felt that. And a lot of people feel that. I mean, so I see that, you wrote that you completed this boot camp in your late 30s, and you're worried about, applying to these companies like a Facebook type of company that it's very, they have this image of, all these young 20 somethings,
Yeah.
sipping mochachinos while they're
Mm.
running on their golf carts, exercising on the moon, all this goofy stuff that you see in like Silicon Valley. But like that, some of that stuff is a little bit real. But is ageism just something that's in our head? Is it an
No.
obstacle that we have to overcome, or is it a real obstacle out there for people seeking real positions?
I think it's both. It's definitely not just in our heads, but I think it's both, in the sense that if you look at ageism as only something that the other people have to fix, I think you limit yourself. And so there is a sense of doing everything that is in your power to progress in the field you've chosen. But we definitely also need to address ageism on a more macro level. I know for me, I wouldn't say that I didn't feel fear about ageism, because I graduated boot camp, I think I was 38, right? 38, between 37 and 38. And I landed my first job at 38. I started my first job five days before my 38th birthday, actually.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yes, it was a nice birthday present. But so I felt the disadvantage, or I guess I felt it, but I didn't let myself feel it too deeply. Because in my mind, like, I didn't have that luxury. Like I felt like, you know what, Arit, you've spent all this money, you've been through this process, get a job, right? Like, that's why you did this, right? And so I think that was my mindset. I didn't let myself really sink into the worries and the fears about, oh, am I too old? Oh, I'm a Black woman. I am older. Like, I'm a mother. I felt it, but I didn't allow myself permission to really sink, because in my mind, I was like, you need to get a job. Just get a job, right? And so I think that's why I answer both. On the one hand, I don't mean to dismiss the reality of ageism and other like barriers to diverse candidates out there. But I think on an individual level, there's a real sense of like, you just need to, do what you need to do and forge ahead, right? Or else you end up being limited, I think, by these systems. Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot of times we have these things in our head, whether it's imposter syndrome, or we want people to tell us that it's okay for you to do that. I give you permission, where no one's going to give us permission to do things. Or on the other side of the coin, where we're looking for people to tell us, you can't do that. Okay, I won't do that.
Right.
But that doesn't happen. It all begins and starts with you and your heart and your head. Did you actually have any experiences at all with ageism, or was it, like you said, just you wondering like, am I not getting this position at all these places that I applied for because I'm not 22?
Yeah. I mean, how do you know? I think it's a great question you
No.
asked. Like, yeah, like that's the thing. Like, did I have anyone like flat out tell me, oh, you're too old? No. Did I have like any communication to the effect of, oh, if you were younger, like how do you really know? I think even when these things are in operation, they're covered and they're couched, sometimes really well, right? And so even if I felt that way in my job hunt process, I didn't really have any evidence. And then I always told myself, even if it's true, does that mean you stop? I think that's what it came down to for me. Like, even if it's true, let's say it's true. Let's say on paper you look great, but then you have the Zoom call and they're like, oh, okay. Let's just say it's true. Does that mean I stop? Does that mean I conclude it's not for me? And that's what I did when I was younger, right? When I struggled in my junior year. And so I had to come to a place where, okay, this place may not be for me. If that's what's going on, then I probably don't want to work there anyway. But does that mean I don't want to work, period? And so I think I just kept telling myself that this is a numbers game. So much of job hunting is a numbers game. Put in the work, put in the numbers, learn what you can from previous failed interviews, and just keep putting yourself out there. That's what I just kept telling myself, right?
Yeah, it all goes back to a lot of these things can be in your head. Like you said, it's how do you measure if it actually is true or not? And,
Right.
there's so many companies. The world is a really big place. I know it seems small because of technology
Right.
brings us together, but there's so many different companies that someone
Right.
could work with, work for, partner with, start your own. There is a lot of opportunities. There's never a dead end. There's
Right.
always doors all around you. One
I
of the
mean, I
things
think this
though, I
go
please.
ahead. No,
No, no,
I was
no.
just going to say that I think fatigue also plays a role. So I think,
Yeah.
job hunting is very tiring. And when, everyone starts job hunting, assuming that within a couple weeks they'll land a job. That's the dream, right? I apply for a position, I get it. Within a couple weeks, I'm working. That's everyone's dream. And it doesn't always pan out that way. And a lot of times there's a lot of fatigue, and not to talk of imposter syndrome and just all the mental stuff that comes along with job hunting. A lot of times rejection can seem like an indictment on your ability. And I think that's another thing I had to learn. Maybe I don't have the skill set for this particular job, but that doesn't mean I don't have any skills. And I think those are the conclusions that we need to kind of wrestle with in our own mind and decide, what am I going to interpret this rejection as? But job hunting is exhausting. And I think privilege comes into it, right? Like, I had the privilege of a partner who was taking care of majority bills. And so I didn't have the added pressure of, oh, my savings are running out. Where am I gonna, how am I gonna pay my next, like, there's a lot of pressures, I think, that different people face. And so on the one hand, like, you have to keep going. It's like the only way out is through, right? But I do have compassion for just different situations, different financial situations, different support situations. I mean, it's a lot. It can be a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that I heard on a podcast that you were on recently, Code Newbies,
Yes.
you were talking about one of the things. It could be ageism, but it's probably more parenting issue, that sometimes young people or parents can't or don't have the ability to understand what it's like being a single parent, and
Yeah.
what goes into that. You were talking about some experiences you had where you brought your daughter to daycare for the first time, and what some people don't realize is that when your child gets sick, you have to go and get your child out of
Yep.
daycare. They don't want sick kids getting
Right.
all the other kids sick, so
Right.
that's when you have to go. Hey, everybody, I gotta go. I gotta go get my daughter.
Yes.
So, or hey, I can't be there for that weekend fun thing that you guys are doing as a team.
Right.
Do you mind speaking to a little bit about that and how you dealt with that experience?
Absolutely. So this was my first tech job. It was not, I have to say it now because of our reality, but it was in person, right? So this wasn't a remote job, and it was an hour from my home one way. And so my daughter's daycare was really close to my home. So I would drop her off and then I would drive into work. And just like you said, any child that starts daycare, that first month, they catch everything, right? They haven't been exposed.
Oh God, yeah.
And so, yes, so my daughter was catching everything that just flew by. And just like you said, if your child is running a fever or they have like the raging, like snotty nose and coughing, they're not going to keep the child in the daycare. And so you have to come and get your child. And so with my company, it was an on-site job. We were not, even though we had times when the engineers would work remotely, we were not designed for remote work. And so I'm brand new. I'm a brand new developer. I'm a brand new employee. I'm still learning. And I just started working. So I don't have any time. I don't have any PTO saved, but my daughter's sick and I need to work from home. And so it was very challenging. Just because our system wasn't designed with remote first in mind, I was not intentionally, but just left out of a lot of things. I didn't feel like because I'm still building a connection with my teammates. So I didn't feel that connection having to work from home with my sick daughter. And then I'm also a new developer. And so I'm learning a lot of the technology is new to me, not just even the technology, but the systems and the way that they did things, right? Like the conventions, that's the word I'm looking for. A lot of the conventions were still very new to me. So it was really challenging. And then just feeling the guilt as well. And that's something that I've blogged about and I talk about is sometimes as parents, when we have to be parents while being professionals, we feel guilty. I would feel guilty for having to be home with my daughter who was sick. Um, and so that was just mentally, that was a challenge as well. So just wading through all of that. And then I was the only mother in the engineering department. I was the only parent on my team. I was the only woman on my particular team. And so the added layer of not really feeling like my teammates got it, it was rough. I have to say it was rough. I mean, I got through it. I tried to focus. I tried not to make conclusions that were not obvious, because we do a lot of that. We're like, oh,
Sure.
this person called a meeting and didn't remember I was remote. Oh, they must not want me. Like there's always that opportunity to take things, you know, more than what it really is. And so I just focused on just be the best developer you can. If you're left out of a meeting, catch up with what they said. Like, I just mentally just chose just focus on the job, right? Do the best you can. And once your daughter gets better, you'll be back in the office, like things like that. Yeah. But it was rough.
Yeah, well, that stuff's very real and very valid. I mean, you talked about guilt. It's and guilt about not being at the office. There's also a
Yes.
lot of guilt about from the other way, where you're like, oh, I need to be with my child, or you get these, sometimes we get calls or we get emails late at night, and we got to
Yes.
jump on the machine and we got to do things, and you're like, sorry, I'll be with you in a little bit, and you got to do
Right.
things because it's work, and you got to take care of work, but also your child. It's I think it's circling back with ageism and everything like that. It's hard for people to understand, and I think for me sometimes I definitely I'm a human being. I get frustrated, and I do project my own emotional baggage, if you
Yeah,
will, on people that may or may not be valid, and it sometimes it could be frustrating and challenging.
absolutely.
But why don't we jump into the next thing, which I'm super excited about, is you were a founder of OurTimeForTech.org. First off, what was the Sega Genesis here? What made you do this? Why did you start this? Let's hear it.
It's weird to hear you say founder. It's so funny. Everyone tells me, Arit, you're a founder. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I fit in the mold, right? Like the traditional founder mode, but it's okay. Our Time for Tech really came out of what I felt was needed in the tech, or let me say, I mean, I can say tech industry, but as an engineer, let me say also the software engineering industry. I felt as though, when I reflect over my journey and how I got to where I am, I realized that I enjoyed a lot of privilege around having access to mentors, having access to people who had been there. Um, Either they've worked for many decades in the field, and so they have the benefit of that experience, or they've also transitioned from other careers into tech and are able to speak to that. I felt like a lot of my confidence came from my connection to those people. And so I began thinking about how I could give back. So Our Time for Tech really is giving back. Um, and how can I, either myself or leveraging my network, how can I make that same kind of support available to women who are making similar transitions, either coming from another career, or mothers like myself wanting to transition? I hear from a lot of women who say, I want to get into tech because of the flexibility, the opportunity to work from home, the better pay. And so it really came from a desire to give back and to give what I was given, right?
Nice. Yeah. I want to read this piece that I pulled off the website and see what you say here. So I founded Our Time for Tech to give women what is often missing from boot camps and other upskilling programs. So you cite intimate, engaged, and sustained support. Do you mind kind of diving into that and how that's missing and how you're providing that?
So you're exactly right. When I was conceiving Our Time for Tech, I really did not want to just duplicate what's out there. So boot camps are great, right? I love the fact that boot camps are providing that opportunity to gain these skills in a relatively short period of time and get you job ready. That wasn't what I wanted to do. I know there's career accelerators out there, and their purpose is through scientific means and training you with, for example, for software engineering, training you in algorithms, especially if you're interested in the FAANG companies. They're doing a fantastic job. I wasn't looking to duplicate that, and so for me, I wanted to fill in the gaps, right? And so sometimes you can go through a boot camp and you emerge with a great portfolio, but maybe you're not really getting like that personalized and that targeted mentoring. Boot camps, at the end of the day, they make money with higher enrollment, right? And so at least for like in my boot camp, we had one-on-one mentoring throughout. I know some boot camps it's group based, right? And so the truth of the matter is, yes, you're getting the technical skills and you're building the portfolio, but are you getting that personalized one-on-one targeted support? Another gap that I discovered, Frederick, is a lot of times with boot camps, you are not doing a whole lot of group work. You're not doing a whole lot of coding and building as a team, right? And so you are judge, jury, and executioner on all your projects, right? Like you decide scope, like you're like a one-man team. And that's good for learning. But I think another dimension of learning, especially as a software engineer, is learning how to build with a team. And that was another gap that I was realizing, even with the bootcamp education and the self-taught, was there weren't that many opportunities to build software as a team. And so that's another thing that we do in Our Time for Tech is, okay, you have some coding skill, but like, for example, we just got done with cycle 2 or we're about to get done with cycle 2, I should say. And all our fellows, they didn't know how to use Git or GitHub, like pull request. What is that, right? Because you're building a personal project and you just push to whatever branch you want. Like you ain't cutting pull requests, right? And so I felt like, and at the end of the day, another thing I discovered, Frederick, is when you go in for those interviews and you're able to demonstrate that you have that experience coding with the team, you can speak to the nuances when you're coding with a team as opposed to just building your own personal thing, you end up exuding that confidence. And so, yes, you have the technical skill, but then you also convince the hiring manager that I can function as part of a team. So those are the gaps that I'm seeking to fill. I'm not really like trying to copy kind of what's out there, which is being done well and very well. But I find that these are the gaps that are still persisting in the experience of women breaking into tech. And so that's what we're looking to.
Well, that's a lot of what you hear from HR departments, right? They're always looking for people with experience.
Yeah.
What does experience mean? How do we quantify that? How can we define experience? Does experience just mean I worked at some place for 2 years, or does it mean I have soft skills and I can work with a team?
Yes.
I'm not a crazy psychopath. I could talk to people and I can have a conversation. Right. And I could collaborate.
Right.
A lot of times people will hire different individuals just because they could work for a team and they're easy to talk to. We're at the office or we're at home, however, we work with people, we collaborate all day. And if you have somebody that is that is providing a lot of friction, it's difficult. You just want to be able to get things done and have somebody that's just cool to talk to. And sometimes you could just teach skills. So it's even like there was a great example that Jeffrey Zelman providing on our on our show a few weeks back, where he talked about where he was working at some place and they were letting people go, and he was one of the first people to get let go in his career because he might have known a little bit more than some of the other people, and a certain respect for these certain projects he was working on, but he wasn't the easiest person to deal with in his younger years, which he took to heart and was a great lesson for him. So, you know, a lot of those things go, I think, aligned with what you're talking about is having that kind of experience of team and being able to have those conversations. That's wonderful.
Even technical communication. So when you think about it, like with our current cycle too, it's one thing to be able to code a feature. It's another thing to talk through it. It's another thing to explain what you did and entertain questions and answer questions along the lines. Like I've spoken with some of my mentees will tell me, oh, I've had job interviews, and say we were talking about a project of mine where I integrated a payment processing like Stripe, for example. And they get questions like, why did you choose Stripe? Why didn't you go with this? Or, you know, they get questions, why did Stripe appeal to you? And they freeze because they never thought about it. They only implemented Stripe because the tutorial said to implement Stripe. And so that's what I'm talking about, gaps. That's what I mean by gaps is, yes, you're gaining these hard technical skills, you're learning to code, you're following tutorials, you're completing boot camps, but are you really thinking about what you're building? And do you have opportunities to communicate what you're learning? Because it's what you communicate in your interviews that gets you the job, not necessarily what you've done. And that's what I learned. I think there's a mindset out there that just because you have a portfolio of 10 kick-ass projects, that doesn't mean you will get the job. If they ask you questions about what you built and you don't have that confidence or that sense of ownership to talk confidently about what you built, they could conclude that you really don't know the stuff, but you do. And so that's a huge gap that I see. And that's what I'm trying to meet through our Time for Tech, is creating a space where women breaking into tech can come and learn these soft skills, learn how to communicate technically about what they're building, you know, participate in a stand-up, participate in a sprint planning. When your colleague has cut a pull request, how do you review code? Not just write code, but how do you review other people's code? Can you get to a point where you understand what this person was trying to do, and go in and either, you know, affirm it or come up with a different approach and suggest it? And then the communication piece as well. And so I'm talking about that's the code collab track is what I'm talking about. We have Better Prep, which is for job seekers in particular. But yeah, we're looking to fill the gaps is what we're looking to do, and be like I guess augmenting all the resources out there that are available for people breaking into tech. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just like you said. I mean, you come out and of some of these camps, and you don't know how to talk to people. Don't know how to talk to it, or they don't know how to sell their ideas. Like you said, you know, you can say, well, why did you use this font here, or why are you using Vue instead of React? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't sell it to the C levels. You have to have some kind of reason behind it. Well, hey, we're getting really close to the end, and I just want to make sure that I put up some links and promote all the places where people could find you. So you're on the Twitters with your name, LinkedIn. Your website is arit.dev. Obviously, ourtimefortech.org. And if you go to Arit Developer, and GitHub, and you got some of your stuff. And I love this recent video that, you know, I brought up the thing with GitHub about, you know, because you showed just recently how people could how to actually do it, set up a project, bring it to your local, clone it. And you know, I think a lot of people are just really afraid sometimes to open a terminal, or you know, that they might not even know about tools like what is it, Tower for Git, or you know, some of those Atlassian, if I'm saying that right, some of their tools like that you can do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I started the YouTube channel. You know, it's so funny. I'm not I mean, I appreciate every like, but I'm not doing it for likes. I really
Yeah.
started my YouTube channel really is for representation, because YouTube is like a wonderful resource for people breaking into tech. There's just so many tutorials and videos, but the more I got into it, the more I saw that, there's just not a whole lot of technical content being done by Black older women. And so that's one of the reasons why I decided to start putting out what I'm learning and how I'm growing technically on YouTube, and really just show that we're out here doing this, and you can too. Yeah.
Yeah, we all need to be out there. The more people that we could get out to communicate our voice, it's hard being, if you don't see people that are like you, like-minded, look like you, or your age and what have you, all these things. It's inspiring to be able to see that and say,
Yes.
yeah, you know what, I could do that too.
Yes.
We all need role models and mentors and that line of inspiration. So hey, we're right at the end of the show, and I love to present our guests with an opportunity to leave us with some parting words of wisdom. And I'm sure people, ask you all the time too about things about like, hey, tricks and tips, for moms, etc. Which one of the things I know you said is take your time, and
Yeah.
you definitely reiterated that early on in the beginning of the show about, you're finding a boot camp that you were able to take your time with. But I'd love to provide you again with an opportunity for some parting words of wisdom. So.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is, if you are, so let's look at it from what I was able to accomplish, right? If you are seeking to break into software engineering, I think the best thing I can advise is approach it with an almost militant mindset, right? So there's a lot of sexy stories out here. There's you check on YouTube how I broke into tech in 3 months, 2 months, 5 weeks. And these stories are sexy and they're inspiring, and they make you feel like I can do this. But I think you really do yourself a service to, get over the emotional aspect of your decision and really approach the process with a disciplined and an almost militant mindset. Really take stock of what you have available to you. What privilege do you enjoy that you can leverage? And what I mean by that is whether it's financial, whether it's in terms of support, whether it's in terms of what you have access to, who you have access to. Take a good inventory of what you have at your disposal and really think about how making your journey will impact not just your life, but the lives of those in your family or your community or whoever you're connected to. And I think when you slow down and you plan accordingly, I think when the roadblocks come up and when the challenges come up, you are prepared to push your way through them. Another thing I'll also say is, do not wait to network. Networking is as easy as, I use my Twitter primarily for professional reasons. And so it's just as easy as following people. If their DMs are open, ask them questions, get yourself on the radar of people in the industry, start networking, because it's really invaluable to be able, I call it standing on the shoulders of benevolent giants, okay? Not the wicked ones. You have people who will never give you a leg up, to save their life. But for the most part, people are helpful. And so take advantage of that. Take advantage of people's goodwill and their desire to help. But be as deliberate as you can. Surround yourself with support. Whatever time you think it will take you to complete your transition, triple it. Manage your expectations. I think if you manage your expectations, you will be better equipped to push your way past the challenges that come up and you reach your goals.
I love that. And also, Jessica is also appreciating what you're saying. Thank you, Jessica. Great interview and advice. Thank you so much, Jessica, for watching. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that's such great advice, because if you don't talk to people, they might not know who you are or where you are or what you're doing. So yeah, that's awesome. Arit, thank you so much for joining us and coming on again. I know it's a Saturday. It's not the easiest thing for everyone to do. So really appreciate it.
I really appreciate I mean, just it's an honor. It's an honor, and I'm humbled to be asked to have been asked to be on your podcast, Frederick. And you all have been great, not just the actual session that we just had, but even the follow-up and the checking in. You guys have been very compassionate and very, crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. So I want to recognize that you're doing this and you're doing it well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, before I start crying, thanks everybody for joining the show. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Smiling.